mean, it's almost embarrassing to admit, but as far back as I can remember, I pretty much always wanted to be an American.
Hello, take me time. Little time, look around me. I got nowhere to hide. It looks like love's finally found me in my life. There's been heartache and pain. I don't know if I can face it again. Yes, I am. I've traveled so far to change this lonely life. I wanna know what love is, and I need you to show me Scotland. Yes, I do. I wanna feel what love means. Talk about sweet, sweet love. I need you to show me. So it's so great to be here. I love you. If you wonder why I'm dressed from head to toe in khaki, it's because I'm here as America's little soldier. Yes, I am. God bless you. I'm sent here to fight the forces of anti-Americanism. Because you know it's so fashionable nowadays. I bet some of you can't resist it, can you? It's so fashionable to be anti-American. Oh, James Bishop. Oh, American. Well, I tell you, we are here to fight it. I'm going to win you back to America's side. Yes, I am. Oh my gosh, you're going on that little journey. Woo-hoo. You know, I hear that there's even Americans trying to get Americans to be anti-American. What? Go figure. Michael Moore, y'all know him? You heard of him? Okay, I think the guy's great. Okay, I think he gives people a chance to stop and think. But does he really give them a chance to start thinking again? I don't think so. And I want you to think tonight, to go on a little emotional, spiritual, intellectual journey, and then come to the conclusion that what's not to love? So we're going on that journey. You gonna come with me? Yeah! Let me hear you say, hell yeah!
Hell yeah! As in mullet hairstyles? Yeah.
And a mullet is also the word for a star, at least in heraldry.
Vast dichotomy of 1 inch on top and 6 feet in the length. There's just no way that that's ever gonna balance out.
That's another America. The America you see on the WWW, where it's just unfathomable, unknowable, and in its way, rather marvelous.
Even in our country, our own first president had long hair. All the first presidents had long hair.
Yeah. My name is John Washington, and I'm standing below a quarter of my family's coat of arms. So that I'm supposed to talk about how the bars and the mullets in my coat of arms, there being 2 bars and 3 mullets, mullets being a word for stars as well as haircuts, how these relate to the American flag. And my opinion is they don't. But let's pretend they do for the sake of this film, shall we? Well, it's true. In the United States flag, there are stars and there are bars or stripes. And if one wants to make a bad pun, one can extrapolate from this idea and make an entire film based on this false premise, which is, I think, what's happening here.
Can we start that all again?
Are you kidding?
No. Do you want to do that again? You don't want to do that again?
Not really.
The flag? The flag. Do we salute?
You want to say the Pledge of Allegiance?
No.
I pledge allegiance to the flag.
No, I mean, I don't know exactly why the flag means so much to Americans.
It's so
weird.
baffling.
Could you define America? I mean, what is America?
That's a bit difficult.
I already said this is going to be easy.
Define America. I mean, no, I couldn't really do that.
What does it mean to be an American? It means you have to love your country but hate your government.
How would you describe America then?
Yeah, North America.
North America, as we call it. There's also South America, by the way.
You know, America is the only country that doesn't have a name.
Oh yeah, that is weird. It's just the United States
of America, which is a broad continent. It includes South America, in fact. It's like...
Maybe the people of Europe could come up with a new name. Maybe we could do the United States of fucked up for a while.
I feel that I am embodying my country. I feel I am becoming America. Close friends say to me, Tina, please don't talk about this on stage. It sounds a little crazy, a little megalomaniac. I say, I know it does, but it's true.
America, the idea of America, the reality of America, has been liberating for people who were on the wrong end of the English class system.
Wow. What does it mean to be an American?
It's a former colony, so we're not as constrained by 2,000 years of history.
I'll buy that for $1.
What does it mean to, well, in this day and age, it means to be a target, I think.
Its whole constitution is aimed at, ultimately liberating the individual.
We think of ourselves like in America as so liberal. Everyone thinks that they're just so free and liberal, but really it's a Puritan society. It's like people that were too uptight for the English, that they kicked them out, and they came over and formed this America. So it's much looser here. It's just much more relaxed. It feels safer. There's a lot of fear in America. A lot of people are scared that something bad is going to happen constantly.
Except that, you live in a materialistic fucking chainsaw. You live in this really scary, dark, exhausting, confusing.
My mama used to say to me, Christina, you can be whatever you want to be. You can have whatever you want to have. This is the American dream. You get your ass out there, girl, and you just grab it. And that's what I did.
Dreams of America are wealth, personal freedom, social mobility, modernity.
Americans imagine that in contrast to Britain and other ancient European societies, they live in a free, open and meritocratic society in which anyone can rise to the top if only they have sufficient talent and they work hard enough.
Anybody in America has got a shot. And that's true. Anybody does.
You see your college buddy who you hung out with, who happened to, he went into computers, interesting, make $150 million. He just made $150 million. You're thinking, I'm as smart as Nate. Fuck, how did that happen? So what
did you get on your SAT?
But you're surrounded by this. He lost $110 million.
So he still has $40 million.
Poor bastard is over $40 million. Son of a bitch. Nate, if you're watching, invest in the theater. You need to invest in the theater.
No matter what colour you are, no matter what your religion, no matter what your socioeconomic background, if you have sufficient talent and you work hard enough, you can rise to the very top of American society. That's simply not true.
And it is an astonishing deceit that America is a land of freedom and opportunity. It's a deceit in the sense that American incomes are more polarized than any in Western Europe.
I say that France is a club. You have to be born with membership. It's not something you can acquire.
And yet, Europeans continue to believe that America is a place of freedom and opportunity. But for some of them, it is.
George W. Bush probably imagines that he ascended to the presidency of the United States through sheer hard graft because he's such a kind of able guy with these kind of huge political skills. It probably doesn't even occur to him that he effectively inherited the presidency of the United States from his father, who just happened to be the president of the United States too, just as surely as Prince Charles is going to inherit the crown of England.
My name is Peter York, a soundbite merchant.
I'm Andy Brooks, and I'm General Secretary of the New Communist Party of Britain.
Toby Young.
Well, I'm Devin Dudgeon.
Over Welsh.
I'm Mistress Avalon, and I'm a pro-dom in South London.
My name is Walter Wells. I'm executive editor.
My name is James Conlon. I'm the principal conductor of the Paris Opera.
We're the Yes Men, where we do what we call identity correction on powerful criminals.
John Clancy.
Naomi Klein shot to fame when her first book, No Logo, became a required text for the anti-globalization movement.
Fertility, I make babies.
My name is Stephan Butler, making advertising for Levi's.
Country music's very own weapon of mass seduction. It's Tina C.
We had one of your friends from California in recently.
Oh gosh, look at him. Barney, he's my governor.
Is he? Yeah.
I think one of the reasons Arnold has come as far as he has is because he's retained his Austrian accent.
Unfortunately, they didn't spend any money. He said he'd be back.
I mean, he's been in America now for over 20 years. I mean, you know, is it actually realistic that he'd still have this heavy Austrian accent? Of course not. You know, it's shtick. I'm sure when he goes home in the evening to Maria, he goes, "Honey, I'm home." You know, whenever the cameras are out, it's like, "Hello, I'm Arnold Schwarzenegger." You know, it's total bullshit.
A good head of hair, and his face was, he looked as if he'd been embalmed, I would say, you know what I mean?
But it's perfect because he's like the kind of, he's a reminder that America is still an immigrant society in which people from all points of the compass converge and can finally, you know, get rid of the yoke of oppression and excel to their natural height.
I got a guitar-shaped beach house in Malibu. Yes, I have, and I've done all of this myself. And you know what? Because I'm the embodiment of the American dream, am I satisfied with what I've achieved? Hell no! I was told I could have everything, so why should I ever stop wanting? Okay? Come on, are you listening, America? You told me I could have the best job in the world, so I want that, okay? I want more. I want more. Are you listening to me, America? You owe me.
You could work all day. You get home, have dinner, sit down. It's 9:30. You're on the couch. You're sitting there, you know, and you're alone. And the thought enters your mind: I could be making some money right now. Why am I not making any money? Because I know right now there are a bunch of guys out there who are making money. You're thinking, I can make some money. You make some fucking money.
But the thing you talk about, the ethic and the American dream, is like that's the trap. It's just like I have to do better than my father, and my son should do better than me.
I'm actually going to school to be a mortician.
I think it's a great occupation, no matter what the economy. People are always dying. I'm proud of my son for helping people in their last wish.
So this is my way of telling you. I am formally announcing that I'm running for President of the United States.
You know, there's not this great social net of unemployment insurance and all that sort of thing, which is sort of available in Europe and in England, and people just work hard.
Historically, there's been an American work culture that has been dignified as being very important by a belief in entrepreneurship, a belief in the dignity of labour, a belief in the essential interestingness of business.
The difference in the work ethic, Americans just work all the time. Americans just work all the time. That's what Americans do.
I mean, work is serious stuff, because work is life-changing.
Americans just have this absolute commitment to work.
Well, you can only see so many sights and eat so many, good meals and just sit around before you feel like you're not being productive,
You know, the English are lazy. But, sorry, can we excise that?
Yeah, well, I'm extremely slow. I'm a snail in the States. But over here, I'm lightning quick, It's just kind of funny, like, wow, that guy works so hard. I showed up one day for work, the whole week.
I quickly learned a lot of things that go on in the office in London that don't go on in the US.
5 minutes later, there was another knock on the door. This time it was 3 little girls.
Can we see the fashion department?
No sooner had I got rid of them than another gaggle of infants appeared. What the fuck was going on? Not only do you hire a stripper to come to the office, but you do it on National Take Our Daughters to Work Day.
Because in the US we're sort of trained to be PC and culturally sensitive, and calling people twats and like saying things have gone tits up and stuff. I was just like, my eyes were this big. I had no idea that was considered acceptable.
There are people at my work who shag their students. That's not a good thing to do.
I think it's much more sexist here, this country, than America. Definitely. Oh, in lots of ways. It's here. It's very common for guys to call women dolly birds and love and that sort of thing. Even somebody you don't know over the counter, and that's just not accepted back home.
And it seems like there is a lot of like really old school stereotypes about men and women over here.
I mean, men just make very sexist comments about women here. Things that just appall me, that back home you get sued over.
I was uninhibited about kind of, making sexist remarks in bars and that kind of thing. And this is actually now completely socially unacceptable, particularly amongst kind of educated professional women.
Whereas in America, the business of business is business, and that is an interesting pursuit in every way, and is intellectually dignified, because there's the whole business of going to business school and learning about business.
In a Germanic country, the attitude is a little bit less pleasure-oriented, but if you are obliged, if somebody obliges you to do your job well, I will do it well. In Latin countries, it is if that person inspires us and gives us something that we feel will give our day or our month a little bit more pleasure, we'll do it gladly. So it's a very different approach.
Lunch is a big difference. Here, everyone goes to lunch. It is routine to go to a restaurant to have lunch, whereas in America it's routine to have a sandwich at your desk, or to grab something on the street and eat it while you're running errands.
I mean, it's not true that the French don't work. That simply isn't so. But there's an attitude about balancing that with pleasure in life, which is, as the further you go toward the south and you get to the Mediterranean, you find more predominant.
Oh, yeah. Well, my first day, everybody went to lunch, and of course, we're ordering pints and, Guinness.
If you don't go out for lunch, you probably brought your lunch, which you'll heat in the microwave oven, which is in the company cafeteria. You probably have a bottle of wine and have a glass or two with your heated meal. That's kind of nice.
Which was great. I was all for that. Yeah, but you would never do that in the U.S. Yeah.
Now, does it help productivity? Probably not. Does it get in the way of productivity? Sometimes, but it still makes life a little more bearable.
How do you find the work ethic different from? Karl Marx was absolutely right. There is a workers' paradise. It wasn't Russia, it's France.
In Paris, people get 5 weeks vacation in the summer and 2 weeks vacation in the winter. The idea of that in the United States, 2 months off. When I talk to my colleagues in the United States, or try to justify getting more staff because of that, they just can't believe it.
It has its benefits and its drawbacks. Again, if you want stuff and you want stuff done, go to America.
Where America has much to learn from Europe is not a question of being able to produce or to be able to know how to produce or how to play on a team or how to get it all together, is really having a more profound concept of what are you producing and what are those thoughts. I mean, what actually is the substance of what you're producing? We're awfully good at producing it. The question is what we're producing worth producing?
There's no sense of inferiority in Britain at all. I think that's the other. I always think that that must be a shock to some American tourists. Of course, the real shock is the prices.
Whatever you can see kind of free, because you can't see everything in just a short time anyhow.
The money, it's so expensive. It is so expensive.
Of course, the difference between the pound and the dollar stands out.
But other than that, I can't wait to get over to the mainland and have it be like 77 cents. Yeah, and I was like, for sure.
We get a few that are on holiday, but we seem to be a bit too expensive for that.
How do you survive here? I mean, it's very expensive.
Yes.
And so you were
trying to figure out
what do you do? I mean, short of,
being independently wealthy.
Or, are you all selling drugs or something?
Very few British people actually envy them. They think there would be a general belief that most Americans would love, if only they could, to live here. And that the British worker, no matter how poor he is, enjoys a way of life far superior to anyone else in the world, I mean, I do know American workers in skilled jobs earn a fortune compared to British workers. They've got risk of being sacked and that, which we're having here now.
Well, the Washingtons came to the United States for money, which is why a lot of people come today.
I think Brits like the idea of the money, because there are still supernormal sums of money to be made.
But we came for the money.
In America, because people think they deserve their wealth and they've earned it, They have no inhibitions about completely flaunting it.
What America has is a complete, almost monopoly of investment banking, new technology, and the electronic entertainment industries, which are the three most powerful sources of revenue and social control in the world.
So that's why it's so refreshing to see France and Germany kind of, even if it's just for the act of not going along with it, you know, whether you believe it or not, it's refreshing to see that kind of resistance. And I don't know how much longer we've got that.
Both of us are very old republics. Both of us fancy ourselves to be the repository of Republican values, of basic democratic values.
When I wanted to go to America in the 60s, I had to sign a document to say I had never been a communist.
And one thing I think I like about the being here, the French seem to be much more tolerant of diversity than maybe we are in the States. So,
in fact, I'm really kind of sent by my government just to say one thing, one little special message I'd like to deliver now. I want to say thank you. Thank you for coming with us to the Little Iraq Scrap. Thank you. We couldn't have done it without you. Well, okay, maybe we could have, okay, but if we had, and the rest of the world would have been nasty to it. So y'all made it legitimate. And that's special.
There is this fantasy amongst the British ruling class that Britain, in Macmillan's words, plays Greece to America's Rome. You know, we are the kind of more sophisticated, intellectual, more experienced culture whose statesmen can kind of give learned advice to the more powerful but kind of less cautious Americans. It's rubbish. Britain actually plays ancient Britain to their Rome, not Greece to their Rome. And one of the shocking things you discover if you're a Brit going to America is that the phrase "the special relationship" means absolutely nothing to them.
We like to think that there's a set of historic links, that we've been Greece to their Rome, all that stuff, and that we are very important in Americans' lives. It simply isn't true.
Rome, that's it. Athens to America's Rome. Now, the idea of the bridge was that Britain would straddle both Europe and the United States, and therefore get the best of both worlds.
The vast majority of Americans aren't very much interested in the rest of the world because there's such a big, exciting world in America itself. And the idea that they really know a lot about us and really care about us is an illusion.
The French spend an awful lot of time thinking about America, an awful lot of time thinking about Americans. And Americans spend absolutely no time at all thinking about France.
But as far as they're concerned, Britain's it's just Europe. It's just part of Europe. You know, you say you're from London, they say, "Oh yeah, I went to Europe once," and that's all it means to them.
Old Europe has been the target of American neocons for the last 20 years, doing down Europe, the idea of complacent, decaying European cultures and European intellectual elites have been on the receiving end of kind of everything that the neocons and the CIA could throw at them.
I mean, so the people in charge of old Europe are these people who have just become kind of immune to the idea of forceful action. Saddam Hussein tried to kill George Bush's father. Don't you think there's something kind of Shakespearean and personal in there? Of course there is. He's for the first time a president who probably truly reflects the broader base of America.
Yeah, bear in mind, we all don't share our president's viewpoints. I know British, for some reason, think we do. We don't. We don't like him either. Leave us alone. You're mean.
But in some respects, you know, it's very convenient for European intellectuals that someone like Bush is the president of the United States because it makes it very easy to hate America. You know, he's the new Reagan.
And it's becoming harder for erudite Americans to be able to explain it away and kind of go, it's got nothing to do with us, or it's not how we feel.
And the fact that Bush doesn't have the intellectual support of many European politicians, it makes me think that actually, yeah, he is the new Reagan, and he's probably as right about this as Reagan was about the Soviet Union.
I really don't think it's very fair to compare George Bush to Hitler. After all, Hitler wrote a book.
His grandfather, Prescott Bush, was the Nazis' banker in America, and this is a deep embarrassment. Serious stuff. From, I think, about 1935 until America went into the war.
Everyone wants to talk about Bush, of course. And you almost have to immediately say, hey, me too, it's awful, we got to do something. You almost have to really get that out pretty quickly. Yeah. But 3 separate guys, what's the matter with him? Someone should shoot that man. Someone should shoot that man. I was like, damn, that's some, we don't even say that,
No, I know a lot of people who do.
Yeah, I mean, it was like intense.
You're responsible for the war in Iraq. It's like,
yes,
I didn't vote. Because I'm an American, we go out for the protests, and sometimes people pull us aside and say, your country is fucked. It's like, I didn't vote for George Bush, and
most Americans did.
People will be saying bad things about America, blah, and I'll just kind of listen, and then suddenly I kind of go, well, I'm an American, and they'll look at me and say, yeah, but you don't count. But I do find myself now having to apologize for being an American, saying, hi, I'm John, yes, I'm an American, but I'm kind of embarrassed to be one.
I stand here every day of my life for the good people of Britain. We're not monsters. For the good people of America, they're not monsters either. They're very, very upset. This is not the good America. This is not the real America. Do you know I had my nose broken on this pavement on the 11th of June last year by somebody who called himself an American.
Look what we've achieved in Afghanistan and in Iraq. Hell yeah. Okay, but let's cut the crap. Let's invade Al-Qaeda itself. They say Islamic Jihad. Well, gee, we had enough too.
It is horrifying what America is doing to various parts of the world right now. And I mean, killing 100,000 people in Iraq is a bad thing, a horrifying thing. But, you don't hear French people talking very much about what they did in Rwanda, which resulted in almost 1 million people dying in 100 days, the fastest genocide in all of history, largely caused by the French, even more caused by the Belgians. And caused, of course, by everybody else in the world doing nothing, including the United States. You don't hear very much about that.
I think France and Germany behaved absolutely disgracefully. They're wrong, and Britain and America are right.
Good people, this is not America doing this. This is a group of thieving, wicked, evil scumbags. Check them out for yourself, folks. Check out Bush, Rumsfeld, Cheney, Condoleezza Rice. She's got a shipping supertanker named after her.
Am I right? Everyone's saying Condoleezza Rice 2008. Come on, think about it. She's smart. She's articulate. Okay, but can she sing? This is America we're talking about. Hell yeah, I am so there. I know, strictly speaking, you cannot vote for me. Okay, most of you, I'm sure, cannot vote. Okay, but it's almost like president of the world. So you ought to be able to.
And the good thing about democratic societies like America is, well, they have their shortcomings, but they're not really going to get any worse. It's hard to imagine America becoming a fascist society.
The occupation of Iraq has been an ideological experiment.
That this was going to be more than an occupation. They were going to turn Iraq into a kind of laboratory for the most radical forms of free market economics.
Corporate America transcends nationhood. What? Oh yeah, well that makes a lot of sense to me, because who the hell you gonna trust? Some Tim Pot, Pol Pot, third world leader. Some goddamn sad little big dictator. Or the people who fed you, clothed you, and cured you. So we trust Coke, we trust Pfizer, the Gap, we trust them all. 'Cause they know best, they know wiser, the ideology of the shopping mall. Yeah, and I am proud to be a part of this great democracy, where a little white trash girl can rule the free world. It's the home of the brave, wasteland of the free. Who the hell is gonna stop me? And I don't sweat when I'm on TV. Yes, I'm Christian, yes, I'm right. Wait, doesn't the fact it's called right tell you anything?
They were saying they were were saying we're going to have a McDonald's in downtown Baghdad. We're going to have a New York style stock exchange within months. We're going to have, Coke and Pepsi.
The United States and Britain never shown any interest in human rights if it's one of their own creatures. I mean, that also goes for France and Germany. I mean, their neutrality isn't because they're concerned about the Iraqis. I mean, 1 million Rwandans got murdered, and France seems to have turned a blind eye to this. That it's power politics, and the European powers, Germany and France, are concerned because they don't want America to have a monopoly of the world oil market. If there wasn't for oil in the Middle East, there'd be no conflicts here, no conflict at all.
Everybody's very guilty these days, very guilty.
Check it out for yourself, folks. Educate yourselves. Look into the pedigree of all these people who say we need this war. Look to see their interests in the oil, the arms.
I don't know how truth in America get associated other than through Superman. Truth, justice, and the American mind.
Oh, do you know what they believe over there? They believe that USA is giving $87 billion to Iraq. Well, yes, they are, folks, in the forms of cruise missiles of £1 million each, in the forms of bloody big bombs, in the forms of a bullet that will shoot you if you dare to protest that you don't have any water.
But our civil liberties are gone. Gone. You know, if Paul Rocio or John Clancy, if we did something and pissed somebody off, or if I wrote something to an email, that was a joke about blowing something up and all that, the United States government could take me and you guys wouldn't see me for 2 years, if ever. That's happening to United States citizens. I wouldn't see a lawyer. I wouldn't see my family. I wouldn't see my wife. I would be fucking gone. And you bet some expert, not some dumb fucking grunt from, Lynchburg, some expert would be putting shit all over my dick and putting me in a hood. And that's happening to United States citizens. But to say, what happened? Where are we? How do we get back to what we were? It's an amazingly heavy time right now, I think.
And I completely believe in the principles of liberal democracy. I mean, I think American society has all kinds of shortcomings. And is by no means the utopia that I imagined it to be before I'd lived there. But nevertheless, I still think, it's a far better society than 99% of the alternatives.
Canada, that's America without a revolution. Polite, civilized, kind of boring.
When you're over here, you don't actually want to be associated with America. It's, I had a friend who was doing a graduate program over in Ireland, and he just claimed to be Canadian the whole time.
Well, I'm glad I'm a Canadian flag, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, we're wearing the Canadian flag right now because we want to be identified as Canadians.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anytime we were mistaken by Americans, we wouldn't get the service and help, but as soon as they knew we were Canadians, we had all the help in the world, so.
And now I've noticed going from Canada to the States now, a lot of security and a lot of straight faces, very serious.
People here will accuse us of being American. We find it highly insulting.
Why?
Well, we just don't like to be painted with the same brush. We share the same continent, but we're very different people. As evidenced by their participation in the most recent hostilities throughout the world where we took a different stance, we're getting punished for it.
Canada? Oh yeah, Winnipeg, eh? Manitoba.
What's that?
I want to get lynched.
Well, you're going to lynch you because you're American.
That's right.
I will outlaw anti-Americanism worldwide as being fundamentally anti-American. And most important of all, I will revoke the rights of certain Canadians to live and work in the United States, namely Shania Twain and Celine Dion.
We are now in Paris. Charles de Gaulle.
Yeah, I don't speak any French. Spanish, but not French.
The French are fascinated by America. The French I think that there's a basic envy because America is a very open culture, a culture in which it's easy to negotiate.
I think there are two things going with France. One is the French status anxiety about the enormous power and importance of America, which they can't directly relate to. The Académie Française desperate last-ditch attempts to hold the French language in place and stop things like Le Weekend and Dream On and being incorporated into French.
And I think the funny thing is that they have a reputation for, you know, hating Americans and whatnot, but
everybody hates Americans.
You know,
and then when
it
you
is
go
what you make
inside
it.
America, everybody hates Californians, so
It
you
is.
can't escape it.
But
You know about that.
You want me to lie and say the people are really nice, or
Yeah, exactly.
not the ones here? France is not as, well, I guess, not as friendly as I expected it to be. People won't really help you unless you speak French.
There tends to be a attitude in America that perhaps the French are off-putting or not so friendly. We have not found that to be our experience at all.
Oh, and we figured, you know, people be rude and snotty and all that.
They're very nice.
They're very nice. Very, very nice.
You know, just the way you live here. Small streets, small cars, everything's compact. Everybody, you know, lives in you can see the definite ends of the cities and towns and the countryside. They don't waste any space, it seems like in Europe, you know, no wasted farmland and so forth. There's no sprawl like in the U.S. I think we've got so much land that we kind of take it for granted and spread out where we want to.
Well, I guess in any big city, people are real short.
But they do have different cars, you know, they're smaller. So people make fun of, like, the, you know, big American cars with their big hamburgers and their big dinner portions, everybody and their big families. And like,
I think that they probably think we're just, I don't know, ignorant, have no idea what we're doing here. And I hope that they don't, you know, because I'm respecting them, and I hope that, you know, they know that.
Oh, I did have a Frenchman once, and he was a bit difficult. His sincere, true, real desire to be castrated. I mean, I guess symbolically, it's the ultimate submission, isn't it? That this woman is going to rip your balls off and take your manhood, but that's best left at fantasy.
We're doing the American thing and going to Euro Disney just to see how different it is from the regular Disneyland, which is in California. So pretty much our experience of France is going to be the Eiffel Tower, taking a cruise down the river, and going to Euro Disney. So I don't think I'm really going to get the whole French feel, but I'm excited. I think it's going to be fun.
There is a history of anti-Americanism in this country that is as old as the American Republic. But it, by and large, tends to be intellectual. It takes issue with policy. It takes issue with approach. It takes issue with what America is doing at that particular instance. The Francophobia that we just lived through, or we just knew about in the United States during that period, was an entirely different thing. It was personal. It was ad hominem. It was attacks on Chirac as an evil person. It was attacks on every French person and the things that they produced as the work of the devil. And that is an entirely different thing, but it's very characteristic of America and Americans. Americans are visceral people, and anybody who opposes us, we tend to be visceral about. It becomes a schoolyard tangle. There's all the other stereotypes that we're rude, that we're ill-bred, that we are arrogant, that we are, but they love us. They really do.
Visiblement, votre prof de français devait être complètement nul. Vous ne comprenez pas une branche de notre langue.
I will stop wasting tax dollars on English lessons for immigrants. Oh, come on, all they need to learn is regular or large.
Since America is such a great big country, and since it is possible to live your entire life and travel thousands of miles and never hear a word of another language, it is very possible to actually believe that everybody on the planet speaks English as a first language.
And I started talking, and somebody said, "You talk funny, you from Boston?" And I realized that I came from a place which in reality barely existed on the American mental map.
I think it's just the sound of an American voice, which is very often loud, that English people object to.
And suddenly these Americans came in, and they were so loud, and they were talking, and we were kind of looking at each other thinking, what are these people doing? And they just
just wouldn't shut up, and they weren't drunk. They were just loud because they were Americans. And see, the problem with that is the Americans that are noticeable are the noticeable Americans.
Most Americans don't realize that the minute they open their mouths, most British people are already trying to close their ears. This is a problem.
Hey, I'm doing it this way. And we tend to talk amongst ourselves lower because especially if we're on a train to where she lives, it's Luton, people just stare at you.
Yeah.
And it
because
it's
Americans
really
are louder.
We weren't. It is a problem not to realize that everybody else in the world has made an effort to speak this language. And you haven't made any effort. And you don't even know what they're saying.
I haven't really noticed it that much. I guess we were at a restaurant one time and the woman wouldn't explain what the things meant, so we just kind of left because it wouldn't have worked out. So.
Coca-Cola for the ladies and gents. Deux champagne américain. Yeah. And votre meilleur vin. Je vais vous apporter de l'eau de vaisselle. Je ne sentirai pas la différence. Je parie que votre femme a une paire de lolos. Excellent.
Good choice.
Excellent. Hey. Brie? Brie? Et votre fille a un petit cul. Just a little Brie, yeah. And, well, we'll get that later. Merci beaucoup. Va te faire foutre. Okay, just a little bit. That's about it.
Where would you find a waiter like that in the United States?
Honey, speak the language. They're going to be very nice. Just try.
We.
Yeah. Now that I've been here for a while, I feel better, and then I can point out, I'll be like, oh, they're American.
Yeah,
oh,
you can really
American.
start
like,
to see, definitely. But I felt the first week we were here, I felt like I had a big sign over my head that was just like, look at me, because I didn't know where I was going, and I was holding a map, and just, but.
Oh.
Well, mainly we just hear them talking.
Yeah.
I mean,
we can't spot them, but it seems like the French can spot us.
Yeah, sometimes I can spot the Americans by what they're wearing and how they're acting and the way they walk sometimes, the way they interact with each other. We're a bit more gregarious, and so they carry themselves a little differently.
I suppose Americans are far more confident and outgoing, which can be irritating.
I will give every American citizen their own reality TV show.
You get any, random American citizen on the street. You've got a roving reporter, some news guy, and he walks up to this perfect stranger, just Joe Citizen walking down the street, and they're perfectly articulate, and they're not afraid to talk on camera and, say whatever, do whatever, and you sort of think that's the norm, but you go to other countries and it's like, people look in the camera and they're, just stunned and don't really know what to say, but Americans are never afraid of, jumping in front of a camera or jumping on stage or doing whatever. It's pretty funny.
Well, they seem to be educated, more educated than what we are. They seem to have good points of view, not always right. They believe in themselves.
And here, I think that's construed as rudeness, that we're loud and bawdy and intrusive and, we don't have any tact. And I don't see it that way. I mean, I guess because I've been here and lived here for a while and I understand their culture a little bit more, I can understand possibly why they see Americans that way. But I think it's a real shame.
You can always tell an American, not just before they even speak. Look at their profile, because many of us have had orthodontics and so on, for better or worse. And you can look at their bone structure, you can look at their adiposity, their fat distribution, you can look at their ass. Basically say, that's an American, that's not an American, that's an American. You can basically say those sorts of things. And it's all because of diet and upbringing. Very little to do with genes, actually. But
dental health. I like nice teeth. Dental health, yeah.
America has given us teeth because Brits always used to be famous, still are really, for snaggly, awful English teeth.
I was talking to this quite pretty girl, thought I was making some headway, and she kind of was staring at my mouth. And when I kind of paused midstream, she suddenly turned over and said, "Hey, Debbie, come look at this. This guy's got English teeth."
People do sort of pick you out as being American by your teeth. And there are like plenty of British people with lovely, lovely teeth. But there are also more people with sort of blackened, yellow, missing teeth kind of a look.
You guys are not
shy on very attractive women. Some of them kind of funky teeth though, but on the whole. If they keep their mouth closed, they get that like Mona Lisa thing going. That's pretty cool.
And as he's ready to move with his fist, my mother says, "Don't hit him in the mouth. It'll cost you $200 for new teeth."
So the other one is the visual. And on the visual side of things, we tend to be more attractive, I have to say. I don't know why that is. I'm not saying present company. I'm saying on average.
Whereas American style is perfection, and you work at perfection. Our national saints, we like people who are a bit ramshackle, who are a bit muddly. American style is highly buffed, puffed, toned in every way.
If we were to go out tomorrow and look for an American,
I wouldn't look like a typical American, unfortunately, because I'm not shaped like a refrigerator.
Because they're so fat. I don't mean that at all. I like Americans, and they're not all fat, but they do have a huge obesity problem.
Real big fat people.
I would not judge America by people like Jerry Springer.
Pairs of very fat, waddly people are Americans, because America specialises in very fat, waddly people.
Yeah, the difference is you've got actors on evening TV, and you've got real people in daytime TV.
I think it's pretty safe to say that you can't judge either culture by what's on TV.
Whereas here, sorry to say, I see a lot of people lopping down the street, with their gimp legs just kind of, hobbling along. And that's a really sad thing, because in the States you would have physiotherapy, you would have a prosthetic limb if need be.
They are so polite here sometimes, yes, it is almost sickening.
But typically Americans are very aggressive and impatient when it comes to waiting or anything customer service related, and the British, on the other hand, very calm, very relaxed, and
what makes us jerks,
it's out of character to, for a British person to complain. That's just like poor form, and everyone will stare at you like, "What are you doing?" They'll be thinking it, but they won't say it.
And here I find that old ladies tend to push me in the supermarket just for fun, just to sort of say, "This is my space." I get the little nudge, or I got bruises on me, for the wrong reasons.
In America, people will respect that space and they'll wait till you're done. And then they'll move in and grab the can of beans or whatever. But here, people just literally shove you out of the way. And I am just appalled. I just find that so incredibly rude. It just amazes me. I almost got into a fight with a lady one day.
Sorry, I'm terribly sorry. But God, the usual explanation given for this is that there's so little personal space here. There aren't wide spaces, that people have to be elaborately careful of other people's concerns and deeply apologetic. Otherwise fights would break out and people would be killed just because they'd bumped each other. Who are you looking at?
People are nicer to each other. I mean, it's like if you're in a crowded bar, even in a sort of rough part of town, in Chicago or sort of San Francisco or wherever, if you if you bump into somebody and spill the drink, you're not going to get somebody pulling you up or trying to stick a glass in your face, or they'll just say, "Hey, sorry," everybody's really nice and pleasant in this social interactions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, everybody's so, just so polite.
Be careful and
they're so polite, it's sickening. Not that you need to be rude, but, sometimes you don't need to be so apologetic and so, nice about everything. And I've had some problems, really, communication styles. I think people think that I'm a bit intrusive. And so I've learned to curtail that a bit. I've learned to adapt that a bit now that I'm aware of it, because people don't quite understand that when I'm asking questions, it's out of friendliness. How are you? I want to get to know you. Tell me about you. I'm curious, rather than I want to know your business.
British people have a politeness to them that Americans don't have, but it can be a very surface politeness because they still have that. They want to get you, but they're just really nice about it. People, English, always say, "Oh, bloody French, bloody Germans, blah blah blah," and it's so funny. They'll just tell you things about how they hate every other culture, no matter who's in the room, kind of thing. So it's sort of like equal opportunity, hatred.
You need to go upstairs and you need to go upstairs and put something in front of that closet door because it's banging and it's causing noise. Take the hood off if you need to see to get up the stairs.
very obedient.
He is very obedient. He's very loyal. He absolutely adores me, bless him. He's a good subby. I very much like the pubs.
And there were caricatures and cartoons on about how not to jump the queue, and whatever you did in England, you were not to jump the queue. And that how the next one was about how we buy rounds here. So when you go to the pub, this is what you do: you buy a round. So if someone buys you a drink, they expect you're gonna buy them one. But don't feel like you have to drink more than you feel necessary. You can drink soda pop if you want. And there were OHPs for that too.
I was brought up to believe in America that obviously the reason people get very drunk when they get into college and university is because it's been banned. And obviously we should emulate the rest of the world where they don't really care. But then you come to England and people are actually pissed out of their minds when they're 14 years old, and they're even drunker when they're 18 than Americans ever could possibly be.
I was astonished by how little people actually drank in New York, particularly journalists. In Britain, your average journalist, the amount they drink, they'd immediately be branded alcoholics.
Over here, if you go out for a pint during the day, or a pint or 10, you're just being sociable. In America, you're an alcoholic. I mean, like... daytime drinking is just like... Totally very, and over here it's just like it's part of the culture.
On one occasion, I actually got this call from an attractive girl who I vaguely knew of but hadn't actually met. And she it was like, hi, I'm Molly. We have a lot of mutual friends. Several people have told me that they think I'd really get along with you. I've seen your picture. I don't know if you've seen mine, but Toby, I was wondering, I know this is very forward of me, and I thought, well, what's coming up next? Is she going to invite me out to dinner? She said, I wondered if you'd like to come to an AA meeting with me. I'm like, I'm sorry? She said, I've heard you have a drinking problem. I had a drinking problem. I know what it's like. I'd love to be your sponsor. I was just astonished, completely gobsmacked. And I said, I'll tell you what, Molly. I'll come out one night with you. You can take me to AA. We'll go to a health food restaurant. We'll both drink lemonade, and maybe we'll go and do some yoga. I'll do that if you promise to come out with me on an alternative night in which we take copious amounts of cocaine, get completely shit-faced, and then have hot monkey sex until 6 o'clock in the morning. Is it a deal? And she hung up.
So people in Britain, in the UK, seem to drink for a longer period of time, more consistently with only beer. Well, we get drunk like in half an hour with hard alcohol, and then we go out and get rowdy. And that's what we do, and the drinking happens.
People in the States, they go crazy, when they go to college and they're still underage, just because it's something they can't do or they shouldn't do, so.
Yeah, we've heard that here it's not cool to get drunk, while in the States it's the thing to do.
Lots of beer swiggling sort of frat houses. I refused to join a fraternity. Everyone having to do push-ups in their puke. I mean, it was just like, right out of Animal House.
And so here it's just great people walking the streets at night, having their fish and chips, drunk off their asses. Okay. But it's just a much more open and warm area here.
I'd have to say that the lack of fear actually makes a lack of menace on the streets too. Like when you walk down the streets in LA or New York or something like that, you're very fearful of every person you walk by, and so you get kind of the same vibe back from them. But what I've experienced around here is that everybody just looks at each other in the eye, it's fine, nobody really cares. Everybody's out to be fine, and it's a lot less fearful of a setting even, there's less reason to be fearful because nobody's afraid.
I don't see that. I don't see people out shooting up, from San Francisco, I used to walk out of my house and people were sitting on my steps shooting up. I haven't seen that here.
In the United States, I think it's very easy to abuse prescription drugs and over-the-counter drugs, and I think it happens very more frequently, and I think psychologically, people don't want to be seen as doing illicit drugs. They won't do speed, but they'll get a prescription for Ritalin and just do 5 of those at once when they don't have a problem, and it's much easier for people to excuse that kind of behavior. So I think that but over here people seem very much well, I snorted 3 lines of coke last night and my nose is all fucked up, but I can't take a sinus thing because you know what those do to your,
If in the States you shoot heroin, you're going to either die or end up in some rehab somewhere. In the UK, if you shoot heroin, you get money for a dog, which you may or may not be able to feed. Yes, come on, you know what I mean?
I knew that they did drink a lot and went out to pubs, but
I can't do it. I don't like to go out every night and go to the pub every night, but that's just what they do. You know, go out, drink. Pub opens at 11 o'clock, drink all day, go to classes, and then probably go to the little clubs afterwards and drink some more.
American women? Oh man, where to start?
In the UK, they go out in little groups, where in the States we go out in big groups, so you socialize. It's harder to go to a bar here and pick somebody up as opposed to in the States.
Some of the finest ladies I've met, and some of the fattest as well.
If an American woman thinks you're totally unsuitable, you're not boyfriend material, and she's never going to see you again, and you're never going to meet any of her friends, it's never going to get out, then she might sleep with you on the first date.
Have I ever laid an American girl? They either go two ways. They're filth, or they're virgins. You either find one and she's dirty as all hell, or you find one and she's not doing anything till she gets married.
What I actually said was I was trying to pretend, to be an English drunk who was returning to London the following day and just wanted to be shown the best bars in the city. Then I could get laid.
In the gay life, I like the San Francisco gay life more than I like the European gay life. I don't like how gay people treat each other here in Holland. It's more snake-like. It's more pss, 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 pss.
Apparently, there's this reputation that American girls love anal sex, which, I don't know where that came from. And then you just worry that people are going to have this idea, when you go out with them, like, no, I'm not into ass play, I'm sorry, But it's a stereotype. I don't know where it came from, but somebody out there is just making it difficult for the rest of us.
Explains. Like,
wait, what?
Some guys have said to me.
See? What did they say?
I don't know, this guy was just asking me if I wanted to do that, and I was like, no, I would never do that.
Yeah, it's a reputation. This explains a lot.
It totally explains. The guy was really confused. I was like, why are you confused? Like, I'm thinking, what did I do? Like, is there some signal that I've been
You're like leaning over all the time, like.
When I was at Harvard, it was the era of the Antioch rules.
You need more Americans here, that's the bottom line, we'll spice things up.
And the Antioch rules essentially specified that at every stage of the seduction, you had to ask the formal permission of the woman to make sure that she was, that the whole thing was entirely consensual. It was a way of kind of, guarding against date rape. So, you had to ask, is it okay if I put my arm around you now? Is it okay if I kiss you? Is it okay if I place my right hand on your left breast? And so on and so forth, ad infinitum. And of course, it's impossible to seduce anyone if you actually have to kind of ask formal permission at every stage. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like, if I stopped whenever a girl said stop, I'd still be a virgin.
Well, the joke back home is that all British guys are gay. That's the joke, because I think the accent has a lot to do with it, and they're so, the stereotype of them being well-behaved and well-mannered and sort of sissy pansies, really, is the joke back home, yeah.
And the big vogue phrase when I was in America was JGE, just gay enough. They didn't want them to be too gay. They didn't want them to be actually gay. They wanted them to be just gay enough. They wanted them to be kind of gay in almost every respect, apart from in their sexual orientation. And, American professional men were only too happy to oblige. You'd see these kind of men in Vanity Fair kind of mincing around in kind of extremely tight pants. And you'd think they must be gay. But actually they weren't. They were just gay enough, heterosexuals. And when it came to, women, they'd completely clean up. I was surprised by how out of fashion kind of manly men were.
English men are more, they want to pay for your drinks or your dinner and whatever, which I always think that, on the first date, whoever asked should pay.
Americans are very open, I think, and very relaxed and laid back, but I think in some ways they need to really loosen up about sex. It's just not that big a deal.
And the first thing that came up is like, oh, well, you're here for a year, you're going to meet people, you're going to need to know this. English people don't consider oral sex the same way that Americans do. Because in America, it's sort of like maybe third base, but here, or in London, it's considered, you know, it would never happen after the home run. It's like an extra inning. So it's like sort of a different progression of events. And, you know, everyone thought that was really important for me to find out right away.
I blew away your boys in Basra. Yeah.
I'm gonna hit you 3 more times, and I'm gonna hit you very hard. Can you take it? Yes. Okay. You need to back up. Unless you want to go on the bench.
So if someone comes into my house here and, you know, takes me up the backside and steals my video camera and computer, I can't do a thing about it. In the US, I could shoot him with an Uzi, you know what I mean? And I would win in court, you know, especially in New Hampshire, live free or die. But the point is, over here, no.
I don't like living in a place where people have guns, and yet I was grown up. I grew up sort of believing, but you know, it's the right of Americans to have guns because of the history, because, you know, if Americans hadn't had guns, we wouldn't have had a revolution, and we'd still be, you know, drinking tea and you know, and losing at football matches.
The British do have a long-established and marvellous culture of violence, which has been practised worldwide and on animals, so we can't say that much.
You invented the gun. We embraced it.
Look, I am America, hell yeah, and I uphold the Second Amendment. I reserve the right to bear arms.
A lot of people think that, you know, that they are more courteous to each other because they might think you've got a gun as well or whatever.
You don't see people getting in fights in bars. You don't see people getting knives pulled on them. And here it's about, you know, like every day there's somebody who gets a knife pulled on them, and it's pretty frequent.
By and large, Americans are most likely to be victimized by pickpockets and by you know, criminals who are looking for looking for the kind of people that tourists are, which is carrying cash, unfamiliar with their surroundings, possibly so wrapped up in what they're looking at that they're not as alert as they could be to the fact that there are criminals around.
Pardon me, may I use your bathroom? Thank you. Now then, boy, big fucking scale.
The scene from Trainspotting wasn't really authentic because mugging isn't such a big thing here, whereas I've always noticed in America it's like when people commit violence against strangers on the street, they always do it for money. It's for money, for, you know, for drugs or for whatever. Whereas in Britain there's a culture, especially amongst young guys, of just confronting somebody on the street just for the sake of violence, for the buzz of violence, or just to sort of out of sheer badness or whatever. Whereas doing that would be quite incomprehensible, even in places, the most kind of sort of ghetto parts of America. Attacking a stranger for no reason other than just violence in itself, without any economic gain in it, would be sort of would be kind of an anathema, really.
A gun? I have a gun? No, no.
There's a belief, which I don't, no Brit really understands, in the right to bear arms all the time, and but underlying all that, there is a massive lobby organised by the industry that puts in people's minds the idea that, particularly people in the sort of in the country, because there's lots of country in America, much more country than there is here. The idea people might come from Mars and want to attack them, or Britain, or anywhere. You know, people might come out. You know, the whole survivalist, you know, trigger-happy mentality, and that's played on hugely by a kind of lobbying in Washington and advertising and PR that's terribly effective.
English people always assume that you have a gun and you have loads of
guns. Yeah, no, I mean, I did have somebody ask me, like, oh, well, did you have a gun back home? Like, no, like, I don't support guns. I would never want a gun in my home.
I've never been held at gunpoint here. Or
Have
in
you
the
in
States.
America?
No. You in LA? You must have been shot at least 5 times. You know, it's LA after all.
So you get lots of people who comment about the water taps, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is so annoying.
And I just think it's a bit of a stuffiness thing. I don't know why the English don't choose taps that combine hot and cold to make warm.
I'll tell you, one of the things I miss the most, and this may sound silly, but I miss single tap sinks. Okay? This business of the hot water and the cold water being separate, it just drives me bonkers. I want them together, you know? And even in the kitchen sink where you do have the one faucet, or tap, can't remember what you call it here, the water doesn't mix together. So like, it comes out cold on one side and hot on the other. So, you know, your hand is freezing and burning at the same time. Just drives me bonkers.
I turned on the tap and half the stream was hot and half the stream was cold, and I couldn't believe it. I was just like, unbelievable. It was awful. It's not that hard, guys. You know, you put a little ball inside of the pipe or whatever. It's just simple.
They managed to do it with the showers.
I need to go to physiotherapy and acupuncture for the simple reason that I don't have a power shower. And if you're not stimulated around the backside, then you get, you know, a little bit angsty. Let me finish my martini now.
We'll move on to English traditions after this.
Are we ready for a martini? Because we do things in the transparent way, you know, in front. Nothing from the back. Always in front.
The service is terrible.
Yeah, exactly. And nobody serves food late. I'm obsessed with how nobody wants to serve food and drink past a certain hour in this cosmopolitan.
In the negative category.
Yeah.
11
No one
p.m.
wants
for
to
a
make
pub
any
float.
money. Yeah, no one's matter. They see they can make some money. That's
What really irritates me is that the shops close at 5 o'clock. And 24 hours, a store that's open 24 hours is not open 24 hours, 7 days a week.
The thing that bothers me is just like the stop serving food in the country, that it's just like your only option is like smoking, drinking, and like crisps. And it's like, no wonder heart disease is a problem.
Americans that come in mainly come in to try and tell us about the boats. They don't really come in to buy the boats. They come in to tell us what they know about the boats and what part of America they come from, etc., etc., etc.
It's a very, very important American idea. Don't dream it, be it. Go do it. And people thought that they could be it and go do it in America.
So America is a place where freedom can create great opportunity, great wealth. You know, we came up with the light bulb.
Person, this American, would you believe, claimed to have invented the shoe.
And what she says in this book is, a stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet. That an English woman should write such a line. But what the English are against historically is unnatural enthusiasm.
You know, Britain, everyone always cuts everyone off at the knees. By its nature, it's cynical. It doesn't support. It actually knocks you down. America's the complete opposite. You know, you can be showing your art down at the local Starbucks, and at a dinner party someone will be talking you up like, or you'll be talking yourself up like you're an artist. In Britain, you can be showing at, you know, at the best gallery in Hoxton Square, and people will be knocking you down. It's an incredibly demanding society, and it's very ungenerous.
And Americans do go in for enthusiasm. They do go in for whooping and whistling and punching the air.
There's something right behind all that carnival hucksterism, shucksterism, and let's get rich quick stuff, which is this opportunity, this amazing place of opportunity, which is the genuine excitement of the country, which is the genuine optimism of the country, the genuine spirit, lack of a better word, of the country, is that we can do this. Somehow. You know, we have an administration that wants to leave the world. We are too tired and overworked and crazy, and we just have to calm the fuck down. And, you know, the country's like a 20-year-old. I think it's a 20-year-old. You know, dire need of sleep. It's a 20-year-old who's out there trying to make money. It's like, damn.
No, it ends up over here. Overpaid, oversexed, and over here was the phrase that was used about the American soldiers during the war.
You know, America was the country which saved Europe's ass twice, and
oh my gosh, it's scary for me because in the 1970s, I was a girl. In the 1980s, I was a woman. In the 1990s, I became a brand. And now, I'm an ideology.
Because I was the big bad American coming in to change things and put in efficiencies and processes and forms. So they didn't like that.
You know, so it's just finding a way to manage America, which I think is, on all facets, is the big challenge for the rest of the world now.
Is this to promote America or?
No.
It was fun, thank you.
Thank
Good questions.
you.
What's this all about anyway?
What's it all about?
Just remind me, we're talking about America versus Europe.
Yeah.
We've done everything. We've done everything. We've done every subject. We've done America.
Who's asking the questions?
How much do you know about my history in Europe? Do you know
Not
anything?
much.
You gonna do any light in here or you got enough?
Sorry, we've completely lost sight.
Big fucking deal. Perfect today, he says. You're a good looking guy, Tom. Give me some tough questions.
God, we're boring.
Yeah, we're doing filming. They're legitimate. They showed up.
I'm gonna end up in a corner for that dog.
Actor's name, huh?
You're not gonna use it and make fun of us, are you?
Let's do some good editing, okay?
Different angle now.
Yeah, it's my son. Imagine. Hold on, wait. Let me formulate some answers real quick so I don't look like an asshole.
I think it's funny that you can tell who's American.
I sound critical of America, don't I? I sound like a bad person.
Are you shooting her ass there?
Yeah, it seems that way, doesn't it?
See how friendly Americans can be? Just volunteering themselves up for this.
Is that because you think English guys are dumber?
It's because I think they're pussies. That comes off camera.
Oh, let me grab my. Oh, so sorry. Let me grab my gloves.
It's nice to have a pretty girl wearing a nice pair of boots. It helps to sell. What you really need is a girl that's a bit butch. Yeah, but maybe you two girls would be probably more the types, because these pretty girls.
You need to turn me into the bad guy during the kind of religious Islami sect just to show what ignorant pricks Americans are. Then I want this shown at the end of the film to know that I knew you were doing that.
When you put it all together, it's great. You make a lot of money.
I'm a microcosm of the world's greatest nation. See my 52 states, observe my perfect formation. Was created by God, beauty was my companion. From my undulating peaks to my damn fine Grand Canyon. I had some natives in me, a few savage farmers, and I was invaded by the Pilgrim Fathers. Allowed them free access, somehow it felt right. Penetrated all over and I grew in strength of mind. I am America, my body is this land. Got liberty's torch burning in my hand. I am red, white, and blue, hell yeah, through and through. You'll see my stars and stripes if you split me in two. Well, I got freedom now, red stuff running through my bloodstream. And at night I sleep, the sleep of the just, and I dream the American